Just want to say that I do have my volume turned down low. I've got a call that I'm expecting. I have to take it. So if it comes in, I'll step off. Don't make an example of me, please.
What do we want? I was gonna say, what do we want for dinner next? There we go. All right, at 10 o'clock, I'd like to call the Isabel County Board of Commissioners Finance Administration Committee meeting to order. This is a hybrid meeting, which means it is both in person and electric. Okay. Well, the agenda, any commissioners have anything they'd like to add, subtract, or do anything? Twice. Hearing and seeing none, I'll now move to the call of the public. Call of the public. Good morning. Anything in virtual?
There is not at this time.
Very
Mr.
good.
Chairman.
Okay, we'll move to consider approving the Isabella County 2023 holiday schedule as presented.
The only funky thing here really, our policy does say, and I believe it's included in your packet, of Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve falls on a Saturday or Sunday. The holiday will be observed on Friday. And that happens for us on both Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve in 2023. Other anomaly on here, I shouldn't say anomaly, but something new on here is the Juneteenth holiday. Actually going to be observed on the actual June 19th.
Can we move that?
Sure, let's move it.
Sure. I'll move that we consider approving the Isabella County 2023 holiday schedule. Then move that to the work session next week.
I'll support that, moving it to the work session. Any further discussion of that? I just, as we stated before, just a couple of things. I just make it reserved. So Saturday and Sunday, it's moved to Christmas Eve. It's moved from Saturday back to Friday to observe it. And
Correct.
Sunday, Christmas is moved to Monday.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And it'll happen even though it's not mentioned. New Year's Day will be, well, I ask you this, mentioned, never mind. It's just at the top, not the bottom.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. That's, I'm having one of those days today. And my other thing is with the Juneteenth, again, it's a situation where we've got a lot of paid holidays, and whether this qualifies. I mean, I was very vocal against it, and I probably will still stay that same way, not because of the significance of Juneteenth or what that represents. It's just that the amount of paid time off holidays, such as the day after Thanksgiving, is that a necessary holiday? Again, it was never bargained for, part of negotiations. It was just basically told, and we followed. It was told by the state Supreme Court to the courts systems to follow that. Apparently, it is a federal requirement. It is not a state requirement. However, Isabella County chose to adopt that. For what I've said in the past, I'll just continue forward to be consistent. But anyway, I'm moving it. I'm agreeing to move it forward to the Board of Commissioners as usual. So, all right, I have nothing further to say on that. Anything else? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. It'll go forward. Next up, fiscal year 2023 proposed budget update.
Yes, so, not a lot of changes, obviously, from, if you took a look at it, it is out on our website. There's a hard copy in our office for inspection. I can print a hard copy for you before you go if you would like one. Really, the very, very few changes between what was discussed on the 16th for the recommended budget to what is now proposed. But I do want to talk about minor changes. No changes to the numbers at all in the document. Same numbers, same $474,000 in fund balance needed to balance the budget. There was a couple of language changes though. In the budget resolution, we did add a section that would talk about if a hiring freeze was implemented. There was a lot of discussion on the 16th about what a hiring freeze would look like. Never really much talk or definition about what a hiring freeze would actually be. But in my letter, I talk about it being a thoughtful review of a vacant position, right? Instead of that knee-jerk reaction to just fill it, a thoughtful review. Has anything changed? Have things be done differently? But Yeah, hiring freeze doesn't have to mean nobody gets hired during this period. It just means that administration's interjected into that process and there's a thoughtful review of the vacancy. Some positions we have to fill, right? Take corrections officers, for instance. We can't put a hiring freeze on those. We're mandated to run that correctional facility. So this is the language that was written in, it's another be it further resolved paragraph in your budget resolution. Be it further resolved that whenever the Board of Commissioners authorizes the implementation of a hiring freeze, the process shall be administered by the county administrator controller. The department head / elected official bringing forth the request to hire may appeal the decision of the administrator controller to the Board of Commissioners. One thing in discussion that was important, and I think that came out, was that there should be an appeal process. It shouldn't end at the administrator controller. Two other language changes that were made on your, on the general fund overview, where it lists out transfers in. We talk about transfers in from commissary, transfers in from registered deeds, transfers in from the CPL fund and all that. It used to say transfers in from commissary and other funds, but there are no other funds attributed to that, so we just took the other funds out. Very simple language change. And then another place where we used to call it community alternatives, we've corrected that to community correction department in the language. So those are the only changes that were made with those language type changes. I just wanted you to be aware of that because there were some changes, of course, from the recommended.
Commissioners,
Nope, I'm satisfied.
Nicole, could you reread your budget resolution as to the hiring freeze? And I'll be very honest with you, I'm troubled by the term, the hiring freeze. I don't know if that's language that we want included in that. Because you're saying at one point hiring freeze, yet you're basically doing everything but have a hiring freeze. Okay. Do we, let me read it again.
Sure.
Just so I
Sure. So that section that's new reads, be it further resolved that whenever the Board of Commissioners authorizes the implementation of a hiring freeze, the process shall be administered by the county administrator controller. The department head / elected official bringing forth the request to hire may appeal the decision of the administrator controller to the Board of Commissioners.
That's it. This was added to it.
Correct.
You could just as well call it a hiring review. Kind of what it is.
Hiring freeze is terminology used throughout government. I mean, I'm very familiar with it. I've heard it, like I said, to other one agency entities. And I know the two caveats, one, probably the one example would be the parks. They're seasonal employees. You know, that didn't really slow up because you really can't wait any length of time. It's not a lot of people out there to begin with, but you're running an operation that involves safety and security for people you care. And the other thing is, I know that in Clinton County, the administrator, when they talked to the department heads, if there was software, some kind of something that had to be purchased to enable a change, that maybe there would be some diversion of funds to software, hardware, because of the higher freeze going to move forward.
Here's what I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, the university uses that term hiring freeze, and what it means there is that it just goes through an extra administrative review. It doesn't mean that positions will not get filled. It means that they'll be more thoroughly reviewed before they are filled.
Have we defined the term hiring freeze for the county?
No.
Then you need to define that, I would think, because you're talking about a term, then you're talking about process. But you haven't defined what the term is. You're just saying hiring freeze. What does that mean? Jerry can say what a hiring freeze, you can say what a hiring freeze. I can say what a hiring freeze is. When hiring freeze is, that's it, no more, end of story. Then you say, well, the process should be administered by the administrative controller. What process if it's a total freeze? There is no process. We just don't hire anybody. Okay, okay.
Right.
So my understanding of hiring freeze could mean different things. It could just mean, we're gonna, as you said, we're gonna look at every position that comes up. Is that really a freeze or is that a hiring? I don't know.
Right, we used
But-
the term pause a couple of years
Correct.
ago, right, right.
But at the same time, we have not, as a board, have not implemented a hiring freeze. It's just if that whenever the board does it. So I would look at, I'm fine with the overall concept of it as far as having a review of everything. I just don't know if this language. I mean, one, we're not under a hiring freeze. Okay,
Correct.
okay, the board hasn't implemented that. We may be under a hiring review right now, and that's totally within your perusal of everything. But I would like to see what a hiring freeze is, okay, because you're using that term. And you know, what a hiring freeze is to Central Michigan, what a hiring freeze was to Ingham or Clinton County or whatever, versus what it is Isabella County, Midland County, what does that term mean? I agree with that, it should be administered by you, not the board. And I agree that if no one's happy with that, the department heads, they can come to the board after that. I fully agree with that policy. But what is that policy? What does the term hiring freeze mean? So there's, again, A, we're not under a hiring freeze right now. B, we're using common sense to replace positions or hire people right now. Anyway, I think we're doing, we should always be doing that, but especially amplified now. That's kind of where I see it. You know, if you want to leave that language in there, I'm fine with it, but that should say fine. I question it. Is it really necessary? But if you want to throw it in there, fine. I don't know. I just, to me, it's not a lot of teeth in it. Because what is a hiring freeze? You know, you haven't defined it as a board. Now, you know, if the board, but at least potential for the next board or this board even to implement something. So from that standpoint, I agree. I mean, if we feel that we need to get expenses under control by not replacing positions or eliminating positions after further review, perfectly fine. We're doing the wage, so, you know, that classification, right, that gets going at. So if that's where you're going, that's fine. I think hiring freeze needs to be probably fine sooner rather than later, but I'm fine with it. I mean, I see it as a common sense move and I see it as a reasonable move that's probably already being done. Okay,
And so, yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I'm telling you. I mean, I'm not against the language and I certainly wouldn't hold anything out because of it. I just want to make sure that, you know, when I see terms of art, not terms, but terms used, hiring freeze, the process, we have everything in place to define it and have everything codified.
yeah, the words aren't coming to me right now to make it gel, but.
Well,
I
hiring
can
freeze
take
is
it
fine.
from time.
Hiring freeze is fine. Even if you put your synonym word of hiring cessation or hiring, I don't know what other terms you would use for freeze because I don't have source on right now, but you know, whatever term you use, I understand what you're looking at too. Okay, and so you know, like, you put it in there, fine. I think that's more show than doubt. As far as putting this down, this is more of a policy statement, which is fine. But
But I did really intend it more to be, like I said in the letter, you know, thoughtful review of positions as they become vacant, rather than
Yeah.
automatically filling. So,
An administrative
define it.
review. Say that in there.
there's some
No.
other county, what's that?
it just says
Process.
administrative,
No,
administrative by administrator, doesn't say
Okay.
Right.
administrative review, maybe that's what we need to change it to.
so the administrator by the county administrator. So instead of administered, you put down reviewed. Take the word administered out, and put reviewed.
Yeah, maybe we say that to include an administrative review.
Shall be reviewed by the-
Included.
I would, the process shall be reviewed by the county administrator control or something to do. I know where you're going with that. It's your policy is that if there's a hiring freeze, but a position comes up or needs to be replaced, the department head can
maybe it should say reviewed and approved by the administrator.
Hiring process to include
Review and
review
approval.
and approval by.
But then again, that comes back to administered. So do you, I think, we're circling back to the
Right.
word administered, reviewed and approved is administered. So,
Mhm.
Well, as
But it's
long
further
as
defined.
department heads know that, yeah, they reviewed it, but I'm gonna have to fill this position anyway. Gets approved through administration.
I think it's all gonna come out in the wash.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I agree with you, Jerry. Yeah. The language, it's vagueness sometimes is good too. It gives you more room to change. And so, I guess, like I said, A, we're not under a hiring. The board hasn't done it. So, board may never do it. It's just that it's in there, so.
And there's not, and I want to be clear, there's nothing in the budget that would suggest it's been implemented or that there'll be realized savings from it. It's just kind of a best practice sort of thing. I just want to be clear. I know a couple of years ago, we did build some things into the budget that hasn't been done for fiscal 23. If there's savings, great.
Right, and looking at the. Leave that in, I wouldn't change a thing. But what I would do is that when that just gives the board, if they do hire, that necessarily may never happen. You may
Correct.
come to the board with a hiring cessation policy or hiring review policy, or for lack of a better term. And that's instead of calling it a freeze, which the board, you come in front of the board and say, this is what I'm going to do. Here on out, except your policy is how everything's done, short of the board doing an overall freeze.
I like that.
Maybe that, but you have the language in there.
Then it's all
In
defined.
case,
because of
in
the
case
policy.
the board gets going, Nicole, you're hiring way too many people. Okay, I'll take that role out and say that. Nicole, you're hiring way too many people. We gotta cut, you gotta do something different. As a board, we're gonna implement a hiring freeze and tell you you have to do something different. Instead of leaving it to you to do it before it gets freeze. Maybe that's the way the board looks. Okay, but it
Makes
gives you,
sense.
it gives the board the right. The board can implement freeze, but it puts it on you first to do it without.
I like that.
I don't know. Jerry, I think,
I'm thinking, once we adopt the budget, if it's in the resolution, it becomes the policy of the board. So that's when we're going to adopt it as a board, as a hiring freeze administered under county administration. But I think it gives some cover for administration too. I come from the ranks. And I know there are people, especially if they're long administrator, that thinks, oh, they're not really working with me. They've got some biases. This, the board is on, that we're on board with, the action of the hiring freeze.
but
Take some of the pressure off administration.
but in this statement right here, what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correct, that doesn't do that. The statement doesn't implement a hiring freeze.
Because the statement says
Whenever,
when the board does.
okay?
I think the hiring freeze shouldn't be hidden in the language of a budget. It should be an action of the board. So that is
This,
something,
this does not implement a hiring freeze.
Yeah. it just says what will happen.
Because I see it as the term whenever.
I've recommended it.
That's what, like I said, you read it close enough. I know the graduate quit.
Yeah, that's what it's.
Yeah,
at.
well, I believe it.
No, and that's what I'm saying. If that's what you're looking to see in here,
That's what was in two other counties.
Yeah.
Actually, it's.
if you're looking to see that, this does not say that. I mean, it just gives whenever the board decides. It doesn't say that it can't be similar things but whenever the board decides to hire in place, then it's, but it doesn't say the
It
board,
doesn't say one is implemented.
or the word whenever.
Right.
So if you're looking for that language needs to be changed. I like that language as is it gives flexibility without firmness, but firmness and flexibility. I can't even.
It's a
repeat that.
tight line.
You
isn't
know,
it?
probably we're spending a lot of energy for nothing.
Well, that's what you, there's lawsuits over whenever. I guarantee it. I mean, not lawsuits, but
For sure.
debates and questions just on terms. I mean, I identify again, this is me drinking coffee or having a Zoom meeting with another thing today and hold on. You know, whenever you got hiring freeze, you got process. And the word appeal. All these things, how do you appeal it? Is it gonna be written? Is it gonna be whatever? Do you have a policy in place for that?
Lots of fodder to make.
But
about.
it's a board resolution. The board says that if there's a hiring freeze, this absent a hiring freeze, now it's on to you to come to the board or manage the budget.
To either set one or.
I think that's where we're at now, is you're now eyes on. Hey, wait a minute, we gotta look at everything. Short of full-blown hiring freeze. I think that's where we're sitting at the board right now, as far as I'm concerned. With language in
That's
there,
good practice.
which language in there that allows us to do that.
So,
So,
yeah, but it doesn't implement it with the adoption of the.
but I guess we
budget.
always,
It would be separate
Right.
action of the board.
I guess we can always have done that anyway without that language, but it just gives the statement that the board is recognizing that this could happen.
Yes. Yeah. And that's.
Short of Jerry, you know, not short of Jerry's, but without having a hiring freeze be implemented with that resolution. Does that make sense? That might, so if you're looking to that, then it has to be changed. I would be more in favor of that language, but really strongly. Being that you gotta monitor everything going on, short of that. But
No, I like the idea.
It's a small step. If it comes to it, we'll know it at the time.
Yeah.
We'll take the action.
No, you can, work can always do it anytime. I mean,
Yeah.
so that's what I see. So we're not, I just wanted to make sure in case, I know Commissioner, I don't want to speak for it, but I know Commissioner Swaney had some issues with the hiring freeze component. I know the sheriff came in front and stated some
Mhm.
concerns with that. And I think that will suffice with the, you know, what you're doing right now, before that, even with the hiring freeze, it allows some options.
It's nice to have the time to have these in-depth discussions about things like that. And the time in between the budget presentation and adoption, that some of this feedback comes up. I know another thing that I could clarify this morning out of the letter, in the recommended budget is the healthcare premium cost shares for employees. I talk in my letter about healthcare cost shares going up, but yeah, I say premiums are actually going down in 2023. So there was a lot of questions as to how could that be? One thing I didn't want to focus on in the letter, of course, was the PA 152 resolution that was missed last year. And so that causes employees to pay more in fiscal 22 for their health care. And they won't have to do that in 2023. So that explains how employee cost shares can actually be going down in 2023 when healthcare costs are going up. So I wanted to help to clarify that, and that was just something that bubbled up from conversation.
And we won't miss that this year.
Oh, sorry. Yes, in fact, it's gonna be on your agenda right after adoption of the budget.
And the only other thing too, and this is just question other than, I know in the past, I think we talked about the commissary funds, you took out the other funds. Now, wasn't there other funds in the past, though, you know, thinking, like cell phone calls or prepaid calls that generated revenue that could be passed over? Is that part of the commissary fund?
It is.
Okay, so that is rolled into the.
It is all part of commissary,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And we've bumped up, traditionally, I think commissary was used to cover costs of sheriff's vehicles only. This year, we did bump that up to cover costs of all his.
That's fine.
So we're moving in the right direction there in terms of transferring into general fund in my mind. The other funds that used to be lumped in with that line in the budget was, near as I can tell, was PA 123. Now, that's not your delinquent tax fund, remember, this is PA 123 is when houses are actually sold in the foreclosure process. And these are, any of those surplus revenues that we get from that sale go into that fund, but now there's a process for the homeowner prior to the sale for them to recoup those surplus funds. So we're kind of leaving PA 123 alone right now until we see how that shakes out.
Yeah, the only funds will be left in theory, if it's 100%, is just our cost plus a fee I think there's an administrative fee, you can, yeah, there's a statutory, I believe, statutory administrative fee. Now, again, that's assuming you get 100% doing that. You know, it is what it is on that, so, yeah, that's fine, I mean, like I said, I just wanted to have that language out there, but I'm fine with that as is. It's just more of a- I just wanted to,
Good.
after I read it a couple, like I said, without seeing it, and rereading it. So, I have nothing else on that. Anybody else?
Well, not on that, but while we're on the budget, I will say that did finally get a chance to look at the YouTube video of the meeting
Oh,
2
boy.
weeks ago
Oh, boy.
while I was,
Here we go.
having a lot of fun.
You see how long Gerald Lindsay talked, stretched it to almost 2 hours. Goodness gracious.
Look at me, he's like, you don't have a
Keep
report.
track of time. How much Jim takes the floor, I take the floor, everyone takes the floor.
So I was having a lot of fun with my grandkids. Up there. I appreciate you doing the meeting for me. But the budget presentation I thought was great, very thorough. Administrator Frost did an excellent job. Just a nice deep dive through it. Not a big glossy show, but a real thorough explanation of everything. One thing that concerns me is getting rid of the long-term disability. And we talked about that a little bit. I think that to save 24,000, I don't know, that could be potentially devastating for someone in that situation. And I think that we talked about forming a healthcare committee and stuff. I think we should leave that, it's just my opinion, but I think we should leave that the way it is and then look at this, possibly this healthcare committee, look at how could we possibly modify that to make it a little easier to administer. Because I guess when somebody's on long-term disability, we hold their job for up to 5 years, which is a long time to hold a job for somebody. Unusually long time, I think. I think there's some middle ground, somewhere between that and just getting rid of it completely. Some middle territory that we can come to on that. That's my opinion on it.
I kind of agree too. I thought about it and then I forgot about it. As an employee, I don't know how many employees actually have ever drawn against long-term disability, but if somebody's impacted by that, it can be devastating to them and their families. And for savings of $20,000 or $30,000, I just don't see adding that to the fund balance, continue it on while we continue to look at it.
What did, since we're getting into this, what describe to me describe to me the 24, the long-term policy or what they're talking. Because I'm familiar with long-term care disability, or is it long-term care or is it
Long-term disability,
Okay.
so the qualifier for long-term disability is that you've been on short-term disability for 6 months, right? That's the qualifier that gets you to long-term. Long-term, actually, I think pays 60% of salary, up to 60 months, 5 years. Is it 67%? I know short-term's 66, 67%, but I think long-term is 60% of salary. So while a person is on long-term disability or short-term, it's considered a paid approved leave, right? And so the employee is still accruing PTO. The employee is still receiving healthcare benefits and would be receiving any retirement benefits on PTO earned. A lot of folks on long-term or other disability choose to use their PTO in a small amount just to supplement the cost of their deductions. They can use PTO in an amount to supplement so that they get to 100% of their salary.
Now is that, and I'm sorry for the ignorance on this, I should know this. Is that funded by the county solely, or is that employee buying it? How does it?
Solely county funded.
Okay.
Employees do have other opportunities to get coverage through other products that we sponsor, so they can do it through payroll deduction if they wanted extra for themselves. This is totally employee or sponsored.
The cost for all the employees is $24,000 a year. So
No, our
No,
cost
I'm saying
for
it's gotta be
long-term,
way-
short-term life, and then that's employee and employer life is about 15,000 a month.
where'd the $24,000 go?
That's a savings by taking away the long-term disability benefit from non-union, non-represented, because it's not built into any
But
agreement.
representative employees will still continue to receive that.
Yes, it's in their contract.
Problem for me on that one then. And then two, I know there's a difference in it with the reimbursement is you said 60%. That's because if the employee buys it, then they would get, I think, 100%. There's different rules whether I believe if the employer purchases it or the employee purchases it. That the employee, if they buy it, I think can get a different
Sure.
rate coverage. I think that's one, if I recall correctly. I'm not in fit, I would agree that this needs to be looked at. Yeah, I don't like the fact that some get it, and some get it. It gets back to that whole thing again. We've done fairness Juneteenth, okay?
Absolutely.
We did fairness on that. We did fairness on. Not that, but with.
Try to do it with the wages.
Yeah, with every-
Sometimes an arbitrator will tell us we have to do
Correct.
different.
right, and also too, did we do it with the thing that we missed with the healthcare payment? We did.
Mhm.
Correct, yeah.
So we have a history of doing everything fairly across the board now for one class of employees. We're saying, you get, the person down the hall gets, that they get it because we're paying it because of a contract. I don't, again, I don't wanna, again, every little small little crab apple that drops on the ground. we
So
have to
this
examine.
isn't small, and in fact, this is one of the things that I've received feedback on, as you might imagine, since the presentation. And again, because we've stretched out the budget calendar, there's time to receive that feedback, there's time to research it.
There's
and
There's
react.
different products you can purchase as an employer too. I know there's a long-term disability that pays up to 67% of your lost wages. There's policies that will pay until you reach retirement age. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just, I would have probably, and even paid too close attention to $24,000 or $27 million budget, but I don't want to say it's foolish, but that last word, my next sentence is going to be foolish. It's not foolish. I don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish. You heard me say that ad nauseam over the years. That could be an example of that. We're cutting here what the overall effect, as Jerry told himself, could be devastating to that person.
And there's been that story has reached my ears in the last several days.
But you're also responsible, on the other side of it, you're also responsible for coming to the board and saying, that's a $24,000 savings times, not just this year, but years out, if you want to do that. Or $24,000 savings this year, we can pick it up next year. You save 24 this year, okay? I would, I didn't interrupt, I'm sorry. I like what Chairman Hope stated, that's another issue for the committee that will be formed, okay? I think that's a great topic. Everything's in it, everything's fair game. Everything's on the table. I like it. I don't like it now. I agree. I would, if we can, I'm gonna say this. Not like it, but I don't think it should be added. We should add, put it back in.
I am meeting, just so you are aware, I have an open mind. I think I've showed you all that. Here's time for feedback. I'm meeting with folks and receiving feedback and have have reached out to Lisa Hoppy from 44 North to let her know, hey, we can't just do away with the long-term disability for non-represented. So we need to go back to the drawing board with figures, you know, maybe what does it look like to keep that benefit in place, but have a 2-year cap? Some of those unions have a 2-year cap on benefits. Why wouldn't non-rep? The benefit was added to our non-represented employees January 1st, 2017. It was never written into policy that they would get it. I don't know that it was brought to this board that they would get it, but I appreciate your feedback on the value of that benefit because I didn't get it. The experience I've had with it has not shown me that value. So it was nice to sit across the table from a department head and see in their eyes the value they saw for their employee when they got to take advantage of it. So very open-minded, very willing to make changes. That's why it's a recommended budget. So we are looking to do something different.
And the 2-year versus the 5-year. I would probably then defer to you. But again, that's,
Just want to make one more comment.
yeah, well,
So when I was employed by the county, I remember paying additional premium because there were options that you could add to your health care. And one of those would either, because I know I enacted, want to see the long term or short term, you paid a premium to have one of the or the other. And I guess since I had left, it kind of morphed over and the county picked up all those costs.
yeah, just, like I said, I think the big reason is, I know number one, I think it's the long term. If the employee purchase it, and then I believe they get taxable or non-taxable, or there's some.
It's not taxable.
It's not
it's
taxable.
Pre-tax, pre-tax.
But it's also non-taxable as income to the employee if the employee buys it, I think. Versus if the employer sponsors it, then it's taxable income. I think that's how that breaks down. I know there's some, I couldn't quite remember what it was, so again, that's something else should look to, like, you know, what do they want to do? Offer a 2, and if they want to go to 5, they can do whatever, but they are keep divorced, but one entities are getting it, while other entities aren't.
Lesson learned.
Life's not fair, but
That's a great message for the employees to receive from this board, though. On the fairness and it. I will say another area I've received some feedback on is a wage study. I think a lot of employees are up in arms that it's like a dirty word. Wage study is like a dirty word right now, and they, you know, the last thing they want to do is go forward with it. I do want to say, even though there's monies built into the budget to perform a wage study, if you adopt it, that doesn't mean wage study is going to happen October 1st. It doesn't mean that maybe we could approach Michigan Association of Counties or Michigan Municipal League, maybe for some type of wage study, benchmarking exercise maybe would be enough.
Sure.
And if we procure a company, a professional company to do it, that contract's gonna come before the board, right? So it's not gonna, a wage study isn't gonna be done behind the scenes. It's all gonna be very, very much out front. So
that's the thing that's always, when we see all these studies being performed in contract. One county, how many other counties are doing it? And it's done, we've already did it. So how many, has any county pirated that information of ours and saved themselves money? It gets back to the old pharmacy state of Michigan. And this, I will give you a pharmacy thing, just 10 seconds, 30 seconds. Is that several years ago, they implemented, Michigan Medicaid did a study to see what the cost of dispensing a prescription was. They determined it to be, we'll say, $10.80 per prescription. Okay, state of Michigan spent millions of dollars for this study. Okay. Other states around them, Ohio, I think other states have also, with the same company, spent that kind of money to do a study. And there's not a lot of difference in the cost of dispensing fees. Okay. So where I'm going with that is, if we invented our wheel, if other counties similar sizes invented a wheel already, maybe we, as you said, do a benchmark against, somebody's got to have this information. Now, again, maybe we, identify a need, again, like you said, it's all to be looked at. And we've got policies in place to look at it, but don't look at it. I mean, I don't know. That was my implementation. Yeah, we do studies all day long, but I don't know. They knew where I was gonna end with it.
I know we started wage reopener negotiations last week with the union. And one of the units brought forth, had done the research to find comparable counties by taxable value and population, and had done the research to find out what the wage structure was there for a particular position. Our attorney was very impressed with the work product that they brought forth. And it dawns on me that you don't need to pay a professional a fancy amount to dig in and find what folks are paying. So it may not even be, it may be something that we can ascertain for with the help of others.
So. Okay. Well, a good point about that launch. I missed that. I'm sorry about that. That's. Anything else?
Public hearing next Tuesday,
No.
one tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, that was just an update.
Yes,
Next
sir.
list. Voice list discussion. Anything, the 12th or the 19th?
I have nothing.
Let's go.
Okay. So we'll then drop to announcements. Commissioners, any announcements? So, I will say, I'll talk about this more in our meeting on Tuesday. I had the opportunity to ride because of a fundraiser. I had the opportunity to ride along with the sheriff on Friday evening in the sheriff's vehicle. Got the opportunity to attend roll call, sit in their meeting, and then go actually on the road with the sheriff. And this was after the time when something tragic happened in northwest Isabel County. So everyone's still kind of shook up about that. And it was an interesting, not a lot, I should say this, there wasn't, I don't want to say action, it's not a good term. The activity was low that evening. It was very highly expected that because of the welcome, it was first weekend back over history that has been issues. Okay. So I was amazed at the amount, not just the sheriff's department, the amount of patrol out there, but when you're looking for it, it's like everything else, you don't look for it, you don't see it. But it was very obvious because I was riding around that sheriff's department vehicle. It was very obvious to look at other entities, the city, tribe, CMU. Wow, there was cars everywhere. They would drive through, and they drive through apartment complexes just to try to keep the community safe. And not that, but sometimes that's just a nice deterrent. Even if you're outside having fun, it's nice company to know that they're not looking at you, they're looking for, not that they could be looking, but they're also looking so you don't get surprised by other things. So it's a great deterrent. And I was impressed by that. I did see a couple situations where officers in action, a couple traffic stops and a unfortunate DUI that didn't have any injuries other than damage to a vehicle. Okay. But it was an interesting evening, and it just goes to show me that what a job that is. I mean, I watched I'll close with this. I watched, there was a show on television or something like that, I can't remember, where you watch, they said, why does a police officer, when they approach a car, always touch the trunk? Okay. Okay. They'll always come and touch the trunk. And apparently, and I asked Sheriff Maine that, he said, it's old school. That's first of all. It's old school, but there was a video that everyone got shown in police academies and everything, that as they were approaching the vehicle, someone jumped out of the trunk and shot the person. So what they do is they approach the vehicle and touch the trunk just to make sure that trunk is secure. It's just old school, and you'll see it like on all that. Watch body cams, you'll see they'll touch the back of the trunk, and that's the reason why they do that. I thought, well, that's, and I'm thinking, well, that's makes sense. But, wow, I would not want to have to approach the vehicle. And at night, approaching a motorcycle, the person gets off, instant, they got to take their helmet off, they got to take their glove, if they're riding properly, take their helmet off, take their gloves off. They got a backpack, they have, take that, all of a sudden the person's doing that, what's going on here? You know, and the sheriff's gotta get out, or the deputy or the police officer, they gotta get up and approach that person. Who knows? It's just, meanwhile, I'm sitting in there drinking my water and the cop got going. I'm in the front seat with my hands in front of me, I sound awful bad tonight. So, anyway, that's just, again, I see it like with the jail. You can hear us talk about conditions, but you actually go look it inside and take a tour and see all that, you don't fully understand. I've been riding around an officer's vehicle. You know, it was, you know, it was an interesting experience. I would do it again, but why? I mean, you know, yeah, but I encourage everyone, I'm not encourage everyone to ride with sheriff or anything, but just acknowledge that. You know, are there people out there that make wrong decisions on his end, but, you know, in that position? Absolutely, but people make wrong decisions on everybody. So it's just that to me, it's just, it was an interesting experience, and I'm glad I did it. Yeah. Sorry, I took 10 minutes, 5 minutes. All right, I have no more announcements. You guys didn't have any. Call to the public.
We do have someone online. My apologies, Treasurer Pickens. I know I kept you in the waiting room for a while. I had the budget document up, so we do have Treasurer Pickens online. He doesn't have his hand raised. He is muted, so I don't know that he wants to make a comment right now. But,
Okay, then since I will give him what you doing? No, that's fine. Then, hello, Treasurer Pickens. Sorry you couldn't join us today, but that's great. That's perfect. Anyway,
Jake Borton has joined the waiting room. He is connecting, so let's just give him a second, since we are at public comment time.
oh, shall I do it again?
Mr. Borton, I see you connected to audio. Do you have a comment for public comment? The finance committee is just signing off.
No, I just was able, this is as soon as I could get on. I was busy on something else.
Understood. Well, the recording will be out there on YouTube, so
Could I ask him a quick question?
probably, yes, sir.
Jake, a quick question. Broken window glass, is that something that's recyclable? If it's contained?
No, because Commissioner, because of the fact that it is safety glass, a lot of times window glass shatters into small little pieces. So it's not something that the glass manufacturers really want.
All right, thank you.
Yep, not a problem, sir.
Okay. Anything else? I got, okay, thank you, Jake. I will now close public comment. And with that, at 10:48, I'll adjourn the meeting.
And my phone didn't